Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits or try the spirits to see whether or not they are of Elohim. Because many false prophets have gone out into the world. This is a solemn warning written by John the Beloved. And unfortunately, during this time, and even during that time, a lot of people did not take heed to that warning. And people are not taking heed to it now. And it's so sad. There's such an influx of false prophets. And people believe everything these false prophets say, because we are living in a time right now where people hate sound doctrine. They like sound like doctrine. They like the sound good doctrine, but if it's sound doctrine, anything that's sound and healthy for your spirit, man, people don't want it because they have itching ears. And I didn't want to address this, but I saw this interview with this so-called lady named Queen who said she went to hell and seen Jesus. I've seen a lot of commentary on this video and a lot of videos being posted. But the thing is, if people were really and truly into the word for themselves, nobody would be able to come along and to just say any type of lie to them. Nobody would be able to bewitch them. Nobody would be able to put a spell on them. Nobody would be able to tell them that they had gone to hell and that they seen Jesus with his muscles glistening and his muscles all big, when according to the scripture, that's not how the resurrected Jesus looked. So, because what she sounded so good, people did not test her spirit. And people, well, they did test her spirit, but they didn't test the spirit according to the way that the word tells us to. Because there's a way to test the spirit. We test the spirit according to what is written. If what they speak is not according to what is written, we could already know that it's either a spirit of error or it's not an antichrist spirit. So just the fact that people were saying that, oh, and I was reading the comments on some videos, oh, I started crying because what she said must have been true because I started crying. Well, people, when Paul wrote to the church, he said, my desire for Israel is that they would be saved. So that means that they were not saved. They have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. A lot of you have a zeal for God, but it's not according to knowledge. It's not according to what is written. So you have a zeal for him because you have a feeling for him. You have an emotion. But what I have to tell you right now on today is that God is not an emotion. Yah is not an emotion. The word says that he is a spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in what? The word says that they must worship him in spirit and in truth. So if somebody comes to you with a lie telling you that they had gone to hell, if somebody said that they had seen Yeshua and that his muscles were all big and that his muscles were all shiny, you already know that they are either a liar or that they are a witch or that they are operating on some type of false spirit, because they are not speaking according to what is written. And you know that what they said is false because so many people are eating it up, because the word says that people will not endure sound doctrine. But a lot of people heard that false doctrine coming out of her mouth and they believed it. They loved it because it was contrary to what is written. That's how you know what is false. If the world loves it. Because if the world speaks well of you, if the world is so accepting of you, the world is going to believe everything that you have to say. The world is going to act according to their emotion. The world is going to say that, oh, that what she said is true, or what he said is true because it tickled my ears. What she said or he said is true because it made me feel good and bubbly on the inside. What he said or she said was true because it made me feel a certain way. It made me cry. But just because it made you cry, just because you got goosebumps and the hair on your arms and the back of your neck and over the other places of your body started to stand up, that does not mean that the words that they spoke were inspired by Yah. So you got to know that when you are being bewitched, and I can assure you of this, if you are not reading your word, if you are not in the word, every time when a false doctrine, every wind of doctrine that comes by, you will be duped. You will be bewitched. You will be carried away. That's why the word gives us the warning that we are not to remain babes in Yeshua, that we are to mature in the word. Because if you would mature in the word, you would not receive every dream that somebody brings to you. You would even test those dreams, right? Because more than anything, when the Lord speaks to us, he might not speak to us in a dream. He might not speak to us in a vision. But one thing you can rest assured of is that he will always speak to us according to what is written. He will always speak to us according to what his word says. But that's the thing. People don't want to read the word. They want to go by what somebody else saw. They want to go by what somebody else heard. They want to go by somebody else's interpretation. And if you're going by somebody else, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it every single time. So whose report are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the report of a witch? Are you going to believe the report of a soothsayer? Are you going to believe the report of a liar? Because every false tongue, everything that does not speak the truth, if you know they're speaking lies, they are speaking of their father, the devil. They're speaking of their father. The word says, beloved, believe not every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether or not they are of Yahuah. Because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Many people in the day in the Old Testament, they were bewitched or they were carried away by false prophets. False prophets are nothing new. You know, they had dreams, and they had dreams of peace, even though that the Lord had spoken war. Because of Israel's disobedience, he was bringing war. He was bringing nations to conquer them. He was bringing nations to which they would have to submit. He was bringing nations against them in order to carry them into captivity. So there was going to be no peace for Israel, but the false prophets came and said, oh, he has spoken peace. And he was like, who sent these prophets? I didn't send them, because I didn't tell them anything about peace. I said, if I say there's going to be war, there's going to be war. So a lot of people are speaking their dreams and they're speaking their visions, right? They're speaking those things, but just because they speak those things does not mean that Yah gave them to them. Sometimes dreams come from what is in our heart. Dreams come from the cares that are in our heart. When we lay down, if we have something on our mind, if something has been on our mind during the day, if something has troubled us before we lay down, we would dream about those things. That's even written. And I can't speak the exact scripture right now, but dreams come because they are a manifestation sometimes of what's in our heart. So if you come and you having a dream and Jesus was in this dream, or Yeshua was in this dream, and he was pecked out, muscles all big. The scripture didn't describe Yeshua like that. So that was not a dream from the Father, right? And I didn't even watch the whole video, but I saw a piece of it. And what I saw, it did not line up with scripture. As a believer, you have to be noble-minded, like the Berean Christians. They were more noble-minded than the Thessalonican counterparts, because they didn't believe everything that Paul said. They received the word, but also after they received the word, they went back and studied the word. And they tested Paul's spirit against what is written. That's how they knew whether or not Paul was a false apostle or a worker of light or a worker of darkness. I encourage every one of you to don't just be accepting these people's dream. Don't accept every prophecy that you see. Don't accept everything that you hear simply because a person has put prophet in front of their own names. You have a lot of prophets out here, but the Lord did not send them. So if they are not a prophet of Yah, who sent them? Test the spirit.